Hey, my name is Paul, and for the past several months, I've been doing midweek little videos and devos on a variety of topics and things that I hope encourage you in your faith of following Jesus. Here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the lost art form of lament. And I'll get into a little bit maybe why I'm there, but for the month of July, we are encouraging our church family to take Thursdays, at least one meal on Thursday, and fast and pray together as a community. And as part of that, we're giving a prayer guide to help spend that time. Last Thursday, we started out in that prayer guide by encouraging people to go to Psalm 62, verse 1. And Psalm 62, verse 1 says this: "For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation." And then the guide encouraged us from that point to write down on a piece of paper, the areas in our life where we're waiting for, asking, and looking for God to save us from. That started a process for me last Thursday of an invitation to lament. Now, I'll get into a little bit more of what that means. And here's how that worked for me last Thursday. As I thought about that, I envisioned the places in my life where I wish I just had wings and could fly away from. Or honestly, if I had like the ability to beam myself, like Star Trek, where I could just escape quickly and get out of. That thought is actually a biblical thought. A psalmist actually penned those words and had the same exact frustration and feelings with God. Psalm 55 is a psalm of lament. It's a psalm where the psalmist finds himself in circumstances that are weighing and burdening his soul. The title of the psalm is "Cast Your Burdens on the Lord." It drips with the pain and the suck of life. And in the middle of that psalm, in verse 4 to 8, I'll just read those verses for you. The psalmist says, "My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me." And here's what the psalmist says. And he says, "And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Yes, I would wander far away, and I would lodge in the wilderness. I would hurry to find a shelter from the raging wind and tempest." The psalmist wants out. He wants to escape. And so this process for me was where I was last Thursday in the prayer guide. And so I started this journey last Thursday of writing out a prayer of lament to God. It wasn't necessarily what the guide wanted, but it's just kind of the direction I went. And so I thought about that, and I just wanted to then spend time on this video speaking about lament. And when I say that, I don't mean how we might think of it as complaining, griping, moaning, bitching, if I can say that. What I mean by it is, how do we do that as an act of worship? And that may sound like strange, that complaining, griping, moaning can, if it's redeemed, be an act of worship. And I think it can do that if it has one important ingredient, and we allow that important ingredient to cut two ways. And that ingredient is honesty. When you read the Psalms, the psalmists are blunt and honest about the reality of life, the pain, the difficulty, the sorrow of human life drips from the Psalms. It's ripe with the realness of humanity. So a good lament has to be honest about our lives. It's not a prayer that is rote and sugar-coated and doesn't actually speak to God about what we actually want to talk about. It's honest. It's real. These are the places we're struggling. These are the places we don't like. These are the things that we see is so far from the promises that you've made to us, God. Honesty has to be real about life. But it has to cut another way, too, to kind of more from just staying in the world of complaining and developing in us bitterness. It has to also be real, not just with the human condition, but with the divine reality as well. One of the beautiful things about the psalm is that they're abundantly real about life, but they also are abundantly real about who God is too. Even in Psalm 55, you read through that, and several times, 3 or 4 times through this long psalm of complaining, the psalmist is going to say, "But I still call to you, God. and you will hear me. I still utter my complaint and my moan, and you will hear my voice. I will cast my burden on the Lord, and you will sustain me. And the psalm closes with perhaps the best of all of those things, and it just simply says, but I will trust you. And that converts a complaint that may draw out in us bitterness to a lament that can draw out of us waiting, perseverance, faith upon the reality of who God is, that he is as real as the experiences that we may be finding ourselves in. For me, what's really helpful in the journey of lament is to write it down. And here, think of it this way. For some of us, when we're in a difficult spot, a disagreement with our spouse or a family member or a friend, we may take the time to write out what it is that we want to say. Because otherwise, we may not have the words that we want to say. We may say the wrong thing. We may not say what we're really feeling. But to write it down, we can hone it, we can clarify it, we can distill it. And so lament as a form of worship is for me, I write it out. Take the time. And probably last Thursday, I started during that breakfast fast, and it's something I went back to all day long, continuing to hone what I wanted to write and pray. And now I have a written prayer that I've prayed several times since Thursday. It's a lament. I'm not holding back the honesty of where I feel I am in life right now. But at the same time, it comes back to, but here I will wait for you, God, because you will hear me and you will save me in your time. So a lament, a form of worship that encourages our complaining, but it also encourages our patience and our resilience to persevere in faith upon our good and great God. That's all I have for you today. I hope this is encouraging or helpful for you, because that's one of the beautiful things I find about our faith. It doesn't ask us to deny the realities of our life, and it actually invites us to feel those things and to put those things into the hands of our good and faithful God. I hope you're well. If you have any questions on this or any of these other videos or anything about our faith, please feel free to email me, Paul@TerraNovaChurch, and hope to see you soon.